Thank you, everybody. Thank you very much for coming today, and welcome to Epsom. I'm Sarah Dewing, and I am the founder and chair of the Emily Davison Memorial Project. 108 years to this day, Emily died from the injuries she sustained after being knocked down by the King's horse in the Derby while trying to petition the King to give women the vote. 8 years ago today, the ADMP project began. Its aim to create and install a fitting memorial to Emily in Epsom. I'm delighted that you're able to join us today to celebrate achieving our goal and witness its unveiling. I imagine we're all here today because commemorating Emily is important to us, all of us, in some way. It might be because she's a relative we're very proud of, because she's a notable figure in the suffrage movement or in the history of Epsom, because we're inspired by her courage and her determination to make a difference and right a wrong, or because we want to celebrate her intelligence and humanity rather than the one-dimensional image of her that has been portrayed for so long. Whatever your reason, thanks for being here. This event is quite different from the one we originally planned for obvious reasons, but one advantage of having to scale it right back is that we have been able to use technology to invite the whole world to participate virtually. So I'd like to thank and welcome all those who could not be here in person and are watching at home. Before the speeches, just like a couple of housekeeping things, if you need any assistance, please look for anybody with one of these who are either committee members or volunteers. They'll be happy to help. You should also have had a programme and a badge on your seat. If you haven't got one of those, then please let us know. Following the unveiling of the statue, we're going to have some official photographs taken with family and donors. So if you're not in one of these groups, you're very welcome to wait and take pictures afterwards when they're done, or you can return to the Marquis for refreshments and come back later to take your pictures. So we commissioned Christine Charlesworth to create the statue of Emily to be installed in its central location in the marketplace here in Epsom, where people will see her every day, walk past her, interact with her. We asked her to design something that would communicate more than just her role in that fateful event. There are many people that I need to thank for their support. Firstly, and most importantly for me, is the committee, the Emily Davison Memorial Committee, Paul Taylor, Charlotte Dring, Peter Stamps, Subo Emanuel, Phoebe Gadsby, and also Councillor Eva Kington from Epsom and Ewell Borough Council, who was, as the council's representative, attended almost every meeting and provided a vital and supportive link with the council. So can I just ask you to just give them a round of applause? We've stuck together through thick and thin, and I think Emily would have been proud of our tenacity and determination. In addition to EBA, I'd like to thank Epsom and Ewell Borough Council as a whole for its support, but in particular Amardeep Healy, Chief Financial Officer, Sam Beek, Head of Leisure Services, and Ian Dyer, the Marketplace Manager. I also need to thank Karen Pengelly, the bid manager at Go Epsom, for all her help and support in organising this event. The Marquis of Granby Pub for hosting the refreshments, and also Peacock Law for its contribution to these. Sue Perks and the MA Graphics students at University of Creative Arts who designed these wonderful panels that you can see behind Emily here. And finally, Irene Cockcroft, the suffragette historian, writer, and the curator of the centenary exhibition about Emily that was staged at Bourne Hall Museum in Ewell in 2013. She's unable to attend today's event, but she's been so supportive of the project from the very beginning and has always been a source of valuable historical information and advice. The project would not have existed, of course, without our contributors. We are very grateful to them for their support, and I'm glad that many of you are in the audience today. I wish I had time to name you all. But special thanks should go to our three major sponsors, Epsom Ewell Borough Council, Go Epsom Bid, and Lionel Blackman Solicitors. I'd like to acknowledge Surrey County Council for giving permission to install the statue on this site and the contributions made by three of its councillors. I would also like to thank local residents, local businesses and community groups for their support and contributions to the project. No matter how large or small, they were all appreciated and have helped us to make Emily a reality. It's also heartening to see how the community has got behind the project and become more aware of her importance to the heritage of their town. I'd also like to thank the Yarn Bomber, who has made 3 specially designed postbox toppers that you might see around Epsom if you take a little bit of walk, especially for today. I'd like to thank those members of Emily's family who are here today, representing those who cannot be. Emily has a very large family scattered far and wide across the globe, but unfortunately, due to restrictions on travel and numbers, we weren't able to invite all who wanted to attend. But we're glad that they can watch the live stream at least, and hope that they'll be able to organise a family event here in the near future. Finally, I'd like to thank Christine Charlesworth for her inspirational design, her passion and her commitment to representing Emily in a way that does her justice and shows her as the intelligent, passionate, determined and courageous person that she surely was. When she's unveiled, I hope you'll agree that she succeeded in her mission. I would like to now ask Christine to say a few words.
Please note I have no notes. Now, there might be a few worried people around here because I've done a series of videos where I waffle on for hours. I promise I'm not going to do that now. I'm just overwhelmed by actually being here. 4 years ago, I had my camera, I had my ideas, and I had Philippa as my captured model dressed in the right clothes. There was a bench there, and I had her sitting on a bench, took lots of photographs. It's on the website, in different positions, seated. I knew what I wanted to capture. A few things have been altered, a little bit of position and things. But, and also thank you very much for the input, being a member of the family, absolutely been invaluable, plus the input I've had from historians. What you will see when this is unveiled is a very strong woman. I hope a person that people in Epsom will want to get to know more. Full of personality, she had loads of friends. She's not got a laugh on her face because she lost quite a few of her teeth and part of her mouth was disabled. That's with force feeding. So half of her mouth's sort of smiling a bit. She's holding that very important. You have to find, there's lots of things to tell the story on her. I'm not going to waffle, I promise. I'm not going to waffle. The important thing, I think, is to thank everybody who's made this happen. After taking the photographs, I then went and had my first meeting with the full committee. They have then, from then until now, worked tirelessly to get this here in Epsom for the people of Epsom to enjoy, and I hope they will. I hope we'll have loads of people sitting beside her, having photographs taken. If somebody's got problems, it might be a good place to sit and share your problems with Emily. A problem shared is a problem halved. That's all I'm going to say. Phew, this is lovely. Right, I'm now going to sit down and I hope the rest of the day goes well. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine. The next speaker is Mandu Reid, leader of the Women's Equality Party and the first black woman to lead a British political party. Mandu worked in various government departments before taking on her current role and has campaigned on women's issues for many years. Mandu.
I do have notes because I have no discipline and there's so much to say that it could easily get out of hand if I didn't restrict myself to some carefully thought out words. I don't know if you can tell or hear from the crackle in my voice, but I am full of emotion right now, and I'm actually surprised at how emotional I feel here today. And it's not just because the sun's shining and I'm grateful for a turn in the weather. It's a lot deeper than that. It is truly a pleasure and an honor to be here with you all to celebrate the unveiling of this wonderful, wonderful statue. Emily Wilding Davison, known to many as the woman who was trampled to death by the king's horse. Emily Wilding Davison, a woman whose life and courage, despite the brutality and ostracization she endured, is an inspiration, a beacon, an example. Emily Wilding Davison, a woman who refused to accept the status quo, a woman who railed and rebelled against it, a woman who made furious defiance part of her legacy, her gift to us. At a time when there is a concerted effort to diminish and reduce protest, when the backlash against women's rights is growing, it is profoundly significant that we have come together today to honor Emily and the revolutionary spirit that she embodied. Time has distanced us from the brutality faced by the women who led the campaign for equality over 100 years ago. The horrific treatment of the suffragettes included imprisonment and force-feeding. This was a movement where women placed their own bodies on the line and pushed back against notions of femininity being equivalent to weakness and meekness. They paved the way for revolutionary new ideas of what being a woman could be. And they did this at great personal costs and sacrifice. Emily herself was imprisoned several times and force-fed a staggering 49 times, an experience that she described as one that will haunt me with its horror all my life. It is clear that even then, brutality was as well integrated into the norms of our policing and justice systems as it is now. We saw during the Black Lives Matter protests in the UK, most significantly in Bristol, a statue is so much more than the figure it represents. And as symbolic and as powerful as it can be to pull one down, it can be equally powerful to raise one up, as we have come here to do today. Now, I don't need to tell you, but the fight for equality is far from over. 100 years to the day after Emily's death, i.e. today, we are still facing monumental challenges. Ever-increasing polarization, a society deeply impacted by a devastating pandemic that has revealed and exacerbated inequality, and is threatening to send progress we thought we could take for granted into reverse gear. The Women's Equality Party was founded 6 years ago, inspired by women like Emily, to accelerate change and push women's equality to the top of the political agenda. We exist and we are needed because the political mainstream has proven time and time again that equality is simply not a priority, which is why we created a movement, again, inspired by women like Emily, where women and men who believe in equality can come together, find their voice, find their power, and find each other. So what can we learn from Emily's life? Many, many things, including the increasingly appealing idea of reigniting the militant direct action campaigning that was a hallmark of her activism. But another important lesson that stands out for me is the need for solidarity and inclusion. There are times in Emily's life where her approach and her commitment to socialist values created distance between her and her suffragette sisters. The feminist movement to this day suffers from and is weakened by fractures and divisions. These only serve to maintain the stranglehold of the patriarchy. And it is my fervent belief that our potential and our power lies in our ability to unify, come together, and collaborate. Only by working together will we be able to create the economic and political renaissance for women and girls that will propel us towards the future that Emily saw all those years ago, where women and girls are truly equal citizens to men and boys. Emily and the generations of women activists who followed in her stead laid the foundations upon which we stand today. Our calling, all of us, is to keep the flame they lit alive, to breathe life into it. And I want to end by speaking directly to the girls and young women who amaze, inspire, and motivate me every single day. Two of them, Anna and Priya, you'll be hearing from very, very shortly. You are the flame. We are guided by the light that emanates from you. Emily would be so proud. Thank you.
Thank you, Mandu. Now I'd like to introduce Audrey Arden-Jones. Audrey was awarded an OBE in 2013 for her work as a specialist cancer nurse at the Marsden Hospital. She is also an award-winning poet and founder of the Poetry Music Ensemble. She is going to read for us a poem she wrote specially for the centenary of Emily's death in 2013. So, Audrey, would you like to come up?
Well, it's a real honour to be here today, and absolutely amazing to have Emily with us in Epsom. I'm a resident of Epsom for nearly 50 years, and I can't think of anything more wonderful to celebrate than having this statue here, and so beautifully told to us about how we can sit beside Emily. So I'm here to celebrate this, and for those of you that don't know Epsom very well, where the racecourse is and the Derby, my poem is called Tattenham Corner. But it's that corner there that leads to the straight bit, which is the finale. And for those of us that live here, during the times when there aren't races, there is a little track across so that we can cross over and get to the other side. And of course, when there is a race, they put grass there, and of course, they gallop on. So I'm also here today with my darling granddaughter, who's called Emily. So that feels very special. Tattenham Corner for Emily Davison. We may cross over a well-turned track, turn back more than 100 years on Derby Day. Spot a young woman in her prime who was imprisoned, force-fed, who spoke out, broke out, shouted out, who on that day slipped under the railings into an incoming storm of horses galloping round the curve, into the long, final straightness. A moment of history. She braved it, stood like a beacon, there for you, there for me, with her iconic message, votes for women. Her last, to a king who should have listened. Then she stumbled under his horse. She never spoke again, never smiled again, never again smelt the freshness of rain, nor heard the June birdsong, outside her window at the cottage hospital. A much maligned heroine of her time, a heroine of our time, a voice that lives on, a voice not just for women. Thank you.
Thanks, Audrey. Women may have won the legal right to vote, control their own bodies, and have equal opportunities in the workplace since Emily's day. But there is still much to be done, as Mandu alluded to earlier, to achieve true equality in our everyday lives. The next two speakers represent the next generation of women who will determine how the legacy of those who went before them, like Emily, will develop in the future. I would like to invite Anna Champness and Priya Watkinson, head girls of Rosebery School, to say a few words.
First of all, this is such an important moment in Epsom's history, and we're so immensely grateful to be part of it. Thank you so much to everyone who's made this happen, and for campaigning so hard and so relentlessly to celebrate such a fundamental figure in our history and in our local history, and it really means a lot to us. Even though Emily's legacy is over 100 years old, we see her courage and her determination for change so much in the people of Rosebery and in our wider community.
We're really proud of the fact that our generation is passionate about social justice and more politically empowered than ever, and think that it undoubtedly has its roots in the courage and determination of the suffragette movement. For women of today, social media can be a powerful political tool, which helps to raise greater awareness of issues that are important to us, like the climate crisis or intersectional feminism, and it continues to unite young people in action. Although Emily's methods were necessary in her time, our methods are different, and they allow us to now focus on issues that affect all women around the globe. Of course, we have something in common between us. The overarching goal has always been and will always be the same.
Emily fought for women in the UK to have the right to be involved in the political system, so that now we can fight against more complex gender injustices that we see all over the world today, by supporting and empowering women across race, class, and LGBTQ+ divides. She has allowed us to strive for deeds and not words, and reminds us to stay active in our pursuit of justice and never settle for anything less than genuine change.
Emily Davison's legacy and this statue mean so many things to us today. They remind us of how far we've come and inspire us to see how far we can go. The statue gives us hope, because even though women's rights have been discussed for hundreds of years now, there are still an estimated 3% of statues to named non-royal women. So the image of an intelligent, determined, and courageous woman right in our high street is more powerful than words can ever say. Thank you very much.
Thanks, both of you. That was lovely. Very inspiring. Next, Penny Blythe from Emily Inspires in Morpeth would like to say a few words. Penny spearheaded the centenary events commemorating Emily in Morpeth and was involved in their campaign to install a memorial to Emily. Both these happened in 2013. Since then, Epsom and Morpeth have maintained a connection through Emily, which we hope will continue to develop into the future. So would Penny like to come up and say a few words?
Emily inspires. We've heard that word a lot this morning. She truly does. I'm here bringing greetings from Jeffrey Davison, an elder in the family in not New Zealand, in Australia, unable to travel, probably can't get out of Australia until 2022 because of the pandemic. And also Emily Inspires, the people in Northumberland who have worked with and supported mentally the group here. So many many people have been involved in creating this. It's astonishing. It's actually incredibly touching, incredibly moving to be standing here. We started our journey with Emily Inspires lost numbers of years ago with the restitution of her grave. 2013 was my first visit to Epsom. We had over 100 of the family here to unveil the plaque at Tattenham Corner. We had 6 of us involved in the project at the Derby on Derby Day. And I don't know how we got out of that without weeping our socks off. It was an extraordinary experience. You've heard about Emily's determination. You've heard about her humour. You've heard about her rebellion against tyrants is obedience to God, an intensely spiritual woman. She was humorous. There are numerous stories at home about her. Our statue, and this statue, our statue unveiled in 2018, the centenary of the first women getting the vote, not all of them. And Emily's statue here, now, 2021, connecting us forever in a way that is physical. People can sit here and be with her. People can sit there and be with her. And rest assured, Epsom, you will always find people here. You will find children sitting on her, because that's what's happened in Morpeth. Every time you go past the statue, at night people have put candles, all sorts of things. You see children climbing on her. You see them sitting on her. That's the legacy. So thank you for inviting me. You have done an astonishing job. I can't wait to see Christine as it reveals. It feels like, here's our sister. So thank you.
Thank you, Penny. We're so glad that you could be here today. Right. Philippa Bilton is the cousin 3 times removed. Is that right? I got it right this time, of Emily. She's here today as well and has agreed, again, she's been very supportive of the project since the start, and as you heard, was worked with Christine to put the first to make the first photographs towards the design. She's agreed to unveil the statue today alongside Anna and Priya, but before they do this, I invite her to say just a few words.
Hello. I have actually got notes because I want to make sure I get the adjectives in the correct order. So I'm absolutely delighted, honoured to be standing in the stead of the family and to represent the greater family who live near and far on this really historical occasion. My thanks firstly must go to Sarah Dewing. I mean, you've just been so proactive in campaigning over the last 8 years to have this to happen. Also to the lovely Christine Charlesworth, and for your absolutely delightful interpretation of Emily from the maquette that I've seen. She is just brought to life, and I'm so excited. I cannot wait to unveil this with the very inspirational girls as well. But lastly, I really have to extend massive thanks for the campaigning of the committee tirelessly over the last 4 or 5 years. And I pinched myself that we're actually here today unveiling my lovely relative, Emily Wilding Davison. She will be so proud. Thank you very much.
Just grab the corner. So I don't know how you do this. Just after 3.
Everybody ready?
have it a bit closer to the middle. Okay, let's do this.
Oh, wow. Oh, that is amazing. It's beautiful, isn't it? Absolutely beautiful.
So there she is. We have one more statue of a woman in Britain. And I really hope that everyone in Epsom takes her to their heart. So that's it. Can I just remind you now that we're going to be taking photographs, official photographs of family and donors. So you're welcome to go back to the Marquis, or you're welcome to stay and when they're done, take as many pictures as you like of Emily. And I look forward to seeing you again back in the pub. Thank you again for coming. Thank you.
Okay, Christine, do you want to come up first for your photo? Mandu, thank you. Yeah, thank you.
It's nice to not have to be socially distanced with somebody.
Thank you. Thank you. Anna and Priya, would you come have a photo? Family. So we've got Philippa, Mike, Janet, Rodney's family, Barbara, Pamela, Eleanor, and Annie. I think the family want to come up. I think round the back. Rachel, do you want to direct how you want it? Yes. Do you want the flag out the way?
Would you like to sit? Pamela, you sit. You're born. I'm only married.
Okay, good. Sorry.